The Octagon touches down in Salt Lake City Saturday night with the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC chasing history. Kamaru Usman will make his 6th title defense in a rematch against Leon Edwards, nearly 7 years after they first matched up. The Nigerian Nightmare is a perfect 15-0 in the UFC and is on his way towards GOAT status. And he's now just 1 win away from tying Anderson Silva for the most consecutive wins in organizational history.
As long as I'm sitting up here at the top, they all have to train for one guy. I have to train for everyone.
For Leon Edwards, he was just 23 years old and early in his UFC journey when he dropped a decision loss to Usman. He's evolved mightily ever since and is currently riding a 10-fight unbeaten streak. And most importantly, he has the self-belief of what it's going to take to knock Usman off his throne.
I am a seasoned veteran now, and I am ready, and I truly believe this is my time.
While Edwards is one of the most technically sound fighters in the UFC, Usman has excelled in rematches. Can Rocky shock the world and pull off the upset? Or will the pound-for-pound #1 stay unblemished in the Octagon?
Everybody knows when Kamaru Usman's fighting, you don't bet against him. Of course, your money's safe if you bet on me.
We're in for a classic Saturday night at UFC 278.
The Nigerian Nightmare, a bad dream for every opponent he faces. This time, Kamaru Usman facing Leon Edwards Saturday night in Salt Lake City. Usman putting his welterweight title on the line for a 6th time. Undefeated in the UFC at 15-0. If he wins Saturday night, he would tie Anderson Silva for the longest winning streak in UFC history. Meantime, Edwards unbeaten in his last 10 fights since losing to Usman in 2015. Oh, yeah, here we go. Welcome to CBS Sports combat analyst and co-host of the award-winning Morning Combat, Brian Campbell. We talk about legacy a lot in MMA, BC. Dana White made a legacy statement this week about Kamaru Usman, calling him the greatest welterweight of all time. Do you agree with that? Is Usman the greatest 170-pound fighter in UFC history?
Yeah, a lot of loaded questions this week involving GOATship and legacy. Look, let's be honest about Kamaru Usman. He's getting there. Has he surpassed GSP in my personal greatest of all time welterweight ranking? Not quite yet. GSP still owns the divisional record at welterweight with 9 title defenses. This would be Usman's 6th. And of course, GSP has a 2nd title in a 2nd weight division. But the whole theme heading into this rematch against Leon Edwards for Usman is that I think the rest of the world is waking up to exactly what he has accomplished over the past 5-7 years since coming to the UFC. That win back in 2015 against Leon Edwards, that was just Usman's 2nd appearance in the Octagon. It was so low profile, it was the early prelims main event. Fast forward 7 years, he's unbeaten in the Octagon. He's the pound-for-pound king. And yes, if he stays on this current run, which it would include defeating Leon Edwards for a 2nd time on Saturday and potentially then taking on rising welterweight Khamzat Chimaev, he would continue to take larger steps in the direction of being considered among those 4, 5, 6 fighters in the quote-unquote upper room that we look at it in MMA history, the John Joneses, the GSPs, Spider Silva, and etc. Yeah, with membership, when you've got a run like he's had, when you've been as dominant as Usman has been, it's going to be hard to keep him out of there if he keeps winning.
Meantime, Leon Edwards unbeaten in his last 10 fights since losing to Usman in 2015. You know he appreciates the craft. He said MMA saved him from being dead, in prison, or broke. He holds wins over Nate Diaz, Rafael Dos Anjos, and Vicente Luque, just to name a few. BC, what stood out to you about Edwards during his unbeaten streak?
You know, just that he was improved every time out, and with that improvement in his game, becoming a more well-rounded striker, that confidence has really come with him. Look, Leon Edwards, if he's had any issues in the cage, it's been a little bit of bad luck, injuries, ill timings. That no contest against Bilal Muhammad a couple fights ago that was supposed to tell us a lot about where he is. He also hasn't had the marketing push as other contemporary welterweights and has been even criticized at times by UFC President Dana White for not being that marketable self. But you know what he is? Inside the cage, consistent. He's a volume striker. He's an educated one. He's quick. He's aggressive. And Leon Edwards is such a different fighter, along with Kamaru Usman, than the versions of both that first touched gloves 7 years ago. They call him Rocky. He may end up needing a Rocky-like performance to pull the upset here. But if you're wondering whether Leon Edwards belongs here, he does. Can he get the job done? That's going to be up to Rocky come Saturday night.
Usman is a heavy favorite. Does he make it 16 straight wins to defend his title, or does Edwards pull off the upset?
You know, I like Usman here, and at the end of the day, I like him big. As much as you can say, what do we take from their first fight 7 years ago? It was so long ago. Usman was only a wrestler then. Look at now, he's a complete fighter. All true. But the foundational aspects of that fight, I still believe are true entering this rematch. If Usman can take Edwards down, even establish the consistent threat of that takedown, it's going to open up his striking game. And once he does put Edwards back on the canvas, it's going to suck away at that gas tank and allow Usman in top position to do Usman-type things, which is heavy ground and pound and just relentlessness. He may not be the same version of himself who was wrestle first, wrestle next, and wrestle only, but as long as Kamaru Usman doesn't forget that foundational advantage he has, this is still his fight to win, and potentially in a big way. And that's not overlooking the talent that Leon Edwards brings to this fight. But Leon Edwards has yet to beat a name and beat him as spectacularly yet to really give you the idea that you can see him making the leap, which is what he would have to do. I like Usman to wear at that gas tank and stop him in the championship rounds. If he wins, he would improve to 16-0 in UFC, the longest winning streak, tied for the longest winning streak in UFC history. Co-main event features Paulo Costa against former UFC middleweight champ Luke Rockhold. Rockhold fighting for the first time in over 3 years. Costa's lost his last 2 fights, but Costa says he'll make quick work of Rockhold, saying, quote, "I really don't believe he can hang with me. I think this fight will finish quickly," end quote. BC, Costa's a heavy favorite like Usman. Does he, in fact, make quick work of Rockhold? I think he does, and it's not that Paulo Costa who once fought for the middleweight title in a somewhat embarrassing performance against Israel Adesanya. It's not, you know, that there isn't questions surrounding him coming in there. He missed weight badly in his last fight against Marvin Vettori before losing a very close fight. He had plenty of excuses for what happened against Adesanya, but it does seem to be a different Paulo Costa this week. He's playing into his own jokes. He's been carrying around a bottle that has a sign on the outside that says the special sauce, the special drink, what have you. He looks to be back in the shape he needs to be, but more importantly, mentally ready to do what he does best, which is take chances, throw big shots, rely on his chin. And the odds tell you he should be too much for a 37-year-old Luke Rockhold. And I think those odds are right. I don't know if Paulo Costa will ever get back to being a legitimate title threat where you could potentially favor him. But I think at this point in his career, he's still got a lot of life left, even though he's made some mistakes, even though he's been up and down. This seems to be the right matchup, the right name at the right time to make a very large statement. Costa's last win coming against the ageless wonder, Yoel Romero. Also on the main card, we've got a bantamweight bout, Jose Aldo against Merab Dvalishvili, who has the most takedowns landed in UFC bantamweight history with 50. Drake, I know you love Drake. He's betting $250,000 on Jose Aldo. Are you doing the same, or should we put our money on Dvalishvili to take down Aldo? I just put $250,000 into a Doge coin or whatever they saw, whatever your currency of the moment is. I'm kidding, of course. No, I'm not going to put that money down. And isn't Drake cursing athletes left and right? Look, forget about that stuff. It's what matters inside this cage. This bantamweight division is the deepest, most talented that any single division has been in UFC history. And this fight right here is not only the best on this UFC 278 card, but if Jose Aldo wins, which would be his 4th in a row since losing a title opportunity after he moved down to this division, after a long run as featherweight king, if he gets a victory, he has already said it. I deserve to be next for that title, which is around the waist of Aljamain Sterling, who's going to fight former champion TJ Dillashaw. There's no shortage of other big matchups, but when you look at this specific one, you have to like what you see here. Aldo may be getting up there in age, but he's still dangerous at bantamweight, a powerful counter striker, and in this 3-round window, not a 5-round fight, you have to wonder, will that make Merab Dvalishvili, who has some of the best cardio we've seen in this game, more dangerous or less dangerous because there's less time to work with? If Dvalishvili cannot take Jose Aldo down, the King of Rio may just do this and survive in advance. But if Dvalishvili can, the older fighters, do you think they like being on their back getting gassed out? That's why the odds are so close. This is a very important fight in the sport's best division. All right, let's take a look back at Brian's picks for UFC 278. Likes Usman via submission in round 4. If he wins, it would give him 16 straight wins, tie the longest winning streak in UFC history. Co-main, BC likes Paulo Costa with a knockout in round 1, and Dvalishvili via unanimous decision. He's won 6 of his last 7 fights via unanimous decision. Main card begins 10 Eastern from Salt Lake City.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.